Good Morning America, news from the front line. Today, the Pumpkins forces have cornered Jumbo's forces in Cleveland after his decisive victory at the Battle of Memphis, where a large portion of Jumbo's forces either surrendered or died. It seems now Jumbo has fortified the city of Cleveland. This will, in all likelihood, result in another bloody siege, not seen since the siege of Pumpkin Loyalist in Chicago merely a year ago. And if the result of that battle tells us anything about how this siege will go, we can fully expect mass starvation and the complete devastation of the city. Our hopes and prayers go out to the people of Cleveland. However, we can take some solace in the fact that we may now be in the final phase of this war, as with the majority of Jumbo's forces being in Cleveland, and the fact that the Pumpkin has completely surrounded the city, it's unlikely they can achieve victory. And with Jumbo's imminent defeat, this may even result in the capture of Jumbo himself and many of his inner circle, who have remained elusive up until this point. And with their capture, we may finally see an end to this bloody conflict. Now that the end of this conflict seems to be within sight, here at the Faygo News team, we have decided that now is the time to recover the beginning of this conflict and put a spotlight on many of its worst moments. We start with the spark that lit the fire of this war, with the extremely controversial election of Pumpkin, who won by a single electoral vote after Jumbo gave the order to crack down on the Pumpkin and his followers. This shocking turn of events lead to every man, woman, and child in the nation was forced to choose a side, with the military in particular being split, with many defecting to the Pumpkin's cause, while some tried to play both sides, such as the state of Virginia. However, tragically, this method of neutrality would prove fatal, as both sides decided to invade the state, leading to widespread devastation. In the early stages of the conflict, Jumbo and his forces had the advantage and were able to win a string of victories against the Pumpkin. However, their brutal tactics caused more and more people to turn to the Pumpkin's cause, one of the most heinous examples being the massacre of Vicksburg, where, after the defeat of some of the Pumpkin's forces in the city, General Bylas gave the order to execute all of his prisoners, which caused national outrage at the blatant war crime, further martyring of the Pumpkin's cause, and as the war went on, Jumbo's forces began to lose ground, leading to the implementation of Operation Monstrous Energy, in which Jumbo gave out Faygo that had been spiked with a cocktail of performance-enhancing drugs and, quote, a fuck-ton of monster, in the hope it would improve his soldiers' performance. Unfortunately for him, Operation Monstrous Energy was a complete disaster, leading to many of the participants having immediate and fatal heart failure. Meanwhile, the Pumpkin had a special project of his own. After binge-watching Spider-Man 1 15 times in one sitting, he decided to replicate the Green Goblin's pumpkin bombs for real-life combat. Although the pumpkin bombs were a strategic success, they had an unfortunate tendency to cause mass and unpredictable damage to the surrounding area, leading to the death of many friendly forces and civilians, which drew condemnation from the international community. As Jumbo's forces continued to lose ground against the Pumpkin, one of his closest advisors, Bilbo, came to him with a solution. The solution was to poison the nation's Faygo reserves to slow the Pumpkin's forces' advance and cause mass casualties, with the utter atrocities being committed on both sides of the Second American Civil War. The international community passed a resolution to intervene and make a neutral zone in New England, and to hopefully find a peaceful resolution to the conflict. With the majority of New England being loyal to the Pumpkin, none of Jumbo's forces were present in the region. However, most of the Pumpkin's forces were occupied fighting with Jumbo's forces and were unable to put up a sizable defense, leading to an easy landing for the United Nations forces and a swift establishment of a neutral zone in the greater New England region. As it seemed, it would be an easy victory for the United Nations, as neither side of the Civil War seemed to place too much importance on the New England region, and they seemed to quickly move on and not heavily contest the new neutral zone. The hopes of many would be that this would lead to a decline in hostilities and eventually result in a peace deal being signed between the two factions. However, this was a grave miscalculation, as this would lead into the darkest chapter of this long, bloody war, as on December 7, 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, several nuclear weapons would be launched from many of the silos occupied by Jumbo's forces and would strike indiscriminately in New England, hitting many cities. Some of the cities affected include York, Cumberland, New London, Albany, Lockport, New York, and the largest of these strikes would be at Baltimore, which spilled over, devastating the nearby city of Washington, D.C. These attacks would leave nearly 9 million dead in their wake, and untold millions were exposed to toxic radiation. These attacks were carried out on the order of Bilbo, but it is still unknown if he acted alone or was under the orders of Jumbo. But nevertheless, this would result in the complete destruction of the United Nations forces in the region, leading to their withdrawal from America. After which, Jumbo would order a purge of all those he considered to be disloyal to his cause, resulting in the creation of the Bureau of Unclown-like Activities, and this period would be called the Reign of Terror, as many who opposed Jumbo and had not already defected to the Pumpkin would be purged. This brings us once again to the present day, and now we can only hope this senseless conflict that has taken the lives of so many finally comes to an end. I'm Tom with Faygo News, signing out.